Hello, everybody, and happy Tuesday. We are excited here at PDP to bring you another episode of the Dairy Signal. Today, we'll be talking with Tammy Vossen, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Beef Council, and she's going to be sharing with us a little more about how the Beef Council is helping build the demand for beef. But before we have a conversation with Tammy, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. And at the top of that list is a big hats off and thank you to all of our national sponsors that walk alongside us day after day to help us bring to you programs like the Dairy Signal and many more. So, a big thank you to all of our national sponsors. We couldn't do this without you. Another thing I want to bring to the attention of those listening, whether you're listening afterward or you're joining us here live at noon on Tuesday, if you're interested in taking advantage of acquiring continuing education units, you can do that through PDP's Dairy Advance program, or DACE is what we lovingly call it. At the end of today's episode, we'll give you a short quiz, a couple, two, three questions that you'll want to answer. And basically, it just proves that you're not a robot and that you indeed did listen to the episode today. And then we'll make sure we get the continuing education's credits sent your way as you have coming to you. Also, if you have a question that comes up during the listening of the live portion here today, there's a place on your screen, whether you're viewing in a laptop mode or if you're viewing today on your mobile device, then look for that place to ask a question. You can enter your first and last name if you want to, but primarily we're interested in what your question is. And when you submit a question, I'll be able to see it here and I can ask it for you on your behalf. So I believe that's all the important stuff right off the top, and I will waste no further time. And I'm excited to bring to you today Tammy Vossen, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Beef Council. Tammy, I turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Shelley, and for the entire team and board at Professional Dairy Producers. We are appreciative of the opportunity to be on today and for the overall partnership that the Beef Council has with PDP for a number of years here as well. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit here today are kind of two things. First is just overall big picture structure of the Beef Checkoff program, a little bit of that historical perspective, and about our state and national boards that are engaged in really implementing the programs and intent of the Beef Checkoff program. And then secondly, I'm just going to share a few of the program examples that we have that have either been in play this year or over the past year or so here in as examples of how we are investing your checkoff dollars into programs to grow demand for beef. So with that, the beef checkoff program dates back to the 1985 Farm Bill. And at that point in time, Congress gave the U.S. Department of Agriculture the authority to write kind of the policy guidelines for how the beef checkoff program would be managed. So we have the Beef Promotion Checkoff Research Act and Order. And again, those are really the overriding guidelines that must be followed, whether you are a contractor to the beef checkoff, a state beef council, or one of our national industry organizations. The founders of the program really felt that it was important for a number of things that you see here on the screen for the success of the program moving forward. So the first piece there is that everyone pays the dollar per head. And as well as for imports that are coming in, beef imports, that importers also pay into the checkoff program. There were a couple of attempts to get a checkoff program passed prior to 1985, but what those who were negative in how the program was initially laid out was that it really needed to have strength in a state and national partnership. So going back to the producer leaders at the state level, and then that decision-making process and input carrying through to the national level. And just to reinforce that as well, was the opportunity to have a truly engaged grassroots and producer controlled structure. And that is something that I have really grown to appreciate at a very deep level here over the last several years since I've been with the Beef Council, and having that opportunity to sit in, of course, on our state board meetings, but also in the committee meetings and national board meetings. It is driven by producer leaders from across the U.S. Of course, the overall purpose of the Beef Checkoff program is to build demand for beef. We cannot use checkoff investments to influence government policy or action, including lobbying. We keep that at arm's length. And we know that there are a number of both dairy and beef industry organizations that are out there that manage that side of our business. And we do go through an annual audit, again, both on the state and the national level of our books, so that that third-party auditor can ensure that checkoff dollars are not invested into government relations activities. And then to just kind of close thing out, that act and order defines what the role of a qualified state beef council is, and that includes how we invest our dollars, the oversight that we have, and but does give flexibility to states in terms of how they name or appoint board members to serve on that state level. The act and order also gives clarity to who the Cattlemen's Beef Board is, and we're going to talk about them here in a few minutes. And then we have a third kind of organization that is outlined there called the Federation of State Beef Councils. The Federation gives state beef boards, state beef council boards, the opportunity to have a very structured and important voice at the national level. And we're not going to talk about that structure really at all here today. But again, it just goes back to the importance of that state and national partnership that our founders felt were very important. So now just to give a little bit of a background about who Wisconsin Beef Council is. The Act and Order does define that state beef councils are responsible to collect the $1 per head within their state boundaries. So whether that is communicating with auction markets, packing plants, dealers, or individual farmers themselves, it is our role and responsibility for collecting the dollar and reporting that back to the Cattlemen's Beef Board. 50 cents of the dollar does stay here within the state of Wisconsin to be invested into programs under the direction of our board, and the other 50 cents goes to the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Of our current 2026 annual budget is right around $700,000. And we have a very producer-forward, producer-led board. And those board members are appointed by agricultural organizations as well as beef and dairy industry organizations from across our state. So an example of some of those organizations would include professional dairy producers, Wisconsin Farm Bureau, Wisconsin Farmers Union, the Wisconsin Cattlemen's Association, the Equity Cooperative Livestock Sales Association, and a number of others who make up our 21 member board. And as I mentioned already, our board determines what our annual marketing plan is. We start with a committee process. Those committees, we have 3 committees made up of our board members here within the state. They hear from our staff team as well as any outside organizations who would like to receive beef checkoff funding. In those committee meetings, usually in over the summer months, we take the feedback from those committees as staff to finalize our proposed budget then that is presented to the full board at our annual meeting in September. And they make the decisions into which programs and at what dollar level those dollars are invested. And this is a picture of not all of our board members, but coming back to our last board meeting here, we do have 21 board members, representative of essentially the entire state of Wisconsin geographically. And I do want to point out that with dairy farmers' investment into the checkoff program, we have a number of dairy producers who are also participating in our board discussions and in giving oversight to the organization. So actually, in just looking back across our board list, we have 9 of our 21 board members who are active dairy farmers here within the state of Wisconsin. So day in and day out, they are making business decisions, of course, on their farms, just like many of you are, but also giving that financial oversight to the Wisconsin Beef Council. So now to talk here on the national level about the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Really, the primary responsibility of the CBB is the overall implementation of the Beef Promotion Research Act and Order. They do give oversight to the 43 state beef councils across the U.S., as well as to the national checkoff contractors, which we'll talk about here in a moment. There are 99 board members serving on the CBB, and that includes our domestic beef, dairy, and veal producers, as well as importers of beef and beef products, since those importers do also invest into the program. The board member makeup is determined by cattle inventories within each state, or if there are lower cattle inventory states kind of in a close proximity, then there will be regional board representation of those smaller cattle inventory states. So how those board seats are determined is by, again, cattle inventories. And for the first 500,000 head of cattle in an individual state, you get 1 board seat. And then for every additional million head of cattle within the state, you get an extra board seat. So you can see here, Wisconsin right now is at about 3.2, 3.3 million head of cattle. That gives us 3 board seats on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Terry Quam, I'm just going to move left to right here on those pictures. Terry Quam of Lodi is being reappointed to the Cattlemen's Beef Board and is currently serving as the vice chair of that organization. Aaron Crooks from Lancaster is a member on the board as well. And then we have Steve Springer from the Linden area in Southwest Wisconsin. And Steve is also involved in leadership roles at CBB, including serving on the beef operating committee, the checkoff operating committee. So again, the CBB receives the 50 cents from the state beef councils. They get the full dollar in states that don't have a state beef council. And then they also get the full investment of those importer equivalents. And their 2026 budget is just over $38 million. You can imagine that the overall national budget has seen a pretty significant reduction here over the last several years with the impact of droughts in the West and the South and the reduction in overall cattle inventories as well. So these are just some examples of programs that are a result of beef contractors who annually apply to receive funding at that national level from the Cattlemen's Beef Board. And of course, our iconic Beef It's What's for Dinner brand is funded through that national investment. To become a national beef contractor, those organizations are national industry governed nonprofit organizations. They have to have a board of directors that represents the cattle or beef industry on a national basis. And they have to be ongoing and active for at least 2 years. And this is the list of our current national beef contractors. Again, they do apply for funding annually. How those dollars are allocated amongst the contractors falls on the shoulders of that Beef Promotion Operating Committee, which Steve Springer serves on. And the makeup of that committee is 10 members from the Cattlemen's Beef Board, 10 members from the Federation of State Beef Councils, and they all go through a very rigorous interview and selection process to be named to that very important operating committee. These contractors are reimbursed only for the work that they have performed and paid for. So it's not it's not a pay up front type of a system. So they have to have the financial wherewithal to pay for the expenses that they are incurring and then submit for reimbursement. And lastly, contractors are not allowed to make a profit off of the beef checkoff program. And just to, in case anybody is wondering, those organizations that are in parentheses, so say as an example, we have the Meat Import Council of America, that is a national beef contractor. They actually subcontract with the Northeast Beef Promotion Initiative. And the other contractors that we have here is the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the U.S. Meat Export Federation. The Cattlemen's Beef Board itself does get a portion of dollars to implement producer communications efforts on behalf of the program overall. We also have the American Farm Bureau Foundation for Agriculture, the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, who subcontracts with Kansas State University, the Meat Foundation, Meat Institute, with the New York Beef Council serving as the subcontractor, and then the National Institute for Animal Agriculture. And with that, I guess I will pause here, Shelley, before I go on to talk about some of the programs that are implemented at both a state and national level to see if there are any questions overall about the structure of the checkoff program and its organizations.
Well, Tammy, that is a lot of information that you're sharing with us. And as I look up here to my question area, I'm not seeing any that have come through right now. So I give you permission to keep moving on.
Very good. We will do that. Well, we were invited to be a part of the Dairy Signal here during May is Beef Month. So we serve as the kickoff to the summer celebrations, which of course we know that June will have lots of activities coming up here now as well, with it being Dairy Month. But what we have found is kind of a great way to kick off our May Beef Month celebrations is crowning the winner of our Wisconsin's Best Burger Contest. So this is our third annual Best Burger Contest here across the state, which starts February, March timeframe with a nomination period. So consumers from across the state can nominate their favorite burger joints that they'd like to go to when they get that craving to not to be leaving their grills off at home and just going out for an enjoyable meal in a local establishment. Once we close those nominations, we take the 8 establishments who receive the most nominations throughout that 30-day period and name them to our Elite 8. And this Elite 8 has really started to carry some high prestige with the various establishments. I would share that each and every one of them who has made it into our Elite 8 just sees an incredible uptake in business, and in particular, of course, their burger sales. So we're really happy that this year we were able to crown the Dump of Cambria as our 2026 winner of Wisconsin's Best Burger Contest with their Tennessee Whiskey Burger. So I know, Shelley, you mentioned that you hadn't had lunch yet. So I'm just going to read off kind of the description of what that Tennessee Whiskey Burger features. But of course, if you can see on the screen, it does have some cheddar cheese on there for our dairy farmers here that are listening. But that's a half-pound fresh ground chuck burger with cheddar cheese, sauteed onions, whiskey brown sugar candied bacon, and it's drizzled with a bourbon glaze. And of course, I've been able to experience one of those whiskey burgers, and it is yeah, absolutely delicious. I've also had the chance of just touring their kitchen areas at the Dump, and they are hand pattying these burgers each and every single day. And the Dump has, of course, shared with us as well that they have continued to see an increase in their business over the last 3 years, as they have made it into our Elite 8 for all 3 years that we have been offering out this contest. And as a new restaurant makes our Elite 8, we travel across the state and visit all of those locations as a way to help them try to the potential increase in business that they're going to be seeing so that they can increase their orders, help prep their staff as well, as some of them have told us it does become a little bit overwhelming as they see this increase in business. So I just wanted to share with you a concrete example of what that has looked like. One of our new Elite Eights in the contest this year sent me just recently some of their store data, and they said that their daily burger volume during the contest was up over 114% over the prior quarter baseline. And over the 25 days of the contest through which they had pulled that cash register data, they had moved roughly 60% of an entire quarter's worth of beef in 28% of the time. So those are just fantastic numbers. And they also wanted to share with me that they were seeing new visitors from all over our state, who were making it really their mission to make it to all Elite Eight. Um, but they said being on the Beef Council's Elite Eight list put a small Ripon pub on a stage we could not have built ourselves. And so they were just very, very grateful for that. So we look forward to the continued momentum of this contest, um, trying delicious burgers and, of course, selling more cheese in the process as well. For those who are listening live or in the next day or so here, another part of our May Beef Month celebrations include a virtual farm tour with Alice in Dairyland. So we are partnering with the Alice program as well as Wisconsin Agriculture in the Classroom to take elementary age students to Poppy Family Farms, and they're going to have a 30-minute virtual tour that day where they can see live the cattle that are on the screen here, and to learn a little bit more about the day in the life of a beef farmer. This is a great opportunity for us to get into Wisconsin schools, to share the importance of the beef industry to those classrooms across the state, and to help them better understand cattle production within Wisconsin. So we're really excited about this opportunity. As of the last check, we had over 50 schools that had signed up to participate in this program, and a number of those were offering it as an overall assembly for their school as well. So we look to have really positive reach with this opportunity. I, of course, also want to mention our Beef in the Classroom program. So for those of you who have kids in high school or even middle school classrooms across our state, or if you're just affiliated with the local school district, we encourage you to make for sure that they're aware of the grants that they can receive from Wisconsin Beef Council in our producers investment into the checkoff program to purchase beef to bring into family and consumer science classrooms as well as agriculture classrooms, so that they have that opportunity to understand the label when purchasing raw beef, how the best preparation methods, and of course, having the opportunity to taste beef itself. Our 2026 potential reach of this program is over 14,000 students with 250 classrooms impacted during this current year through this program. So grants are determined by the number of students that will be reached. And we, of course, ask for feedback for the teachers after they've implemented the program in their classrooms. They have to submit their receipts in order to be reimbursed for the purchases of beef. And we just get such positive feedback year after year for this program. And it's really been a popular one that our board has continued to see value in investing into, and has tried to increase the amount of dollars that we have going into this program, just because of its reach and impact that it has. This past year, we've also partnered with the Alice in Dairyland program, and you can see Sarah Hagenau in the right-hand picture there in a classroom. Sarah went out to a number of our classrooms and actually did a training based on kind of the priorities of the teacher that she was working with, as far as the messaging that they wanted their classes to hear. So this has really just, again, been a very impactful program that we have continued to see value in year after year. Now I'm going to transition to a national program that we were able to bring and expose across the state of Wisconsin here as well this past year. So going back to that contractor list on the national level, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is a contractor, and channel marketing is one of the program areas that they lead programming in. They have relationships with a number of national retailers, and we have found that an effective way to reach a lot of consumers with our messaging is to do some advertising through e-commerce. So, of course, we know that a number of our consumers today are making their grocery purchases through an online app or through a retailer's website. So, we can't name the particular retailer. Sorry, I apologize. My phone was ringing and it was coming through my headsets. Um, so we have had the opportunity through this e-commerce platform to be able to reach consumers through online ads. So whether the consumer was on the retailer website or on the app, or if they were just on another popular consumer website, say allrecipes.com, they were served our beef ads. And you can, on the screen, you'll see examples of those ads. This was focused on Nutrition Month with a slogan of wellness made easy. And within those ads, there is a clickable Shop Now button. If they weren't on the retailer website already, it would take you to the beef category of their website or in the app where our consumers could see a number of beef cuts that they could choose to purchase and put into their online shopping carts. So the overall impressions through this program nationally was 74 million. So that's the ad value of this investment overall. However, the great thing that we really appreciate about this type of program is that we are also able to track beef sales that actually occur through those folks that have seen our ad. So again, on the national scope here, we saw $238 million in total beef sales, which we know are being purchased through consumers who saw those ads within the last 14 days. So for every $1 that was of checkoff dollars that were invested into the program, we saw $600 of beef purchased. Now we'll take that down a little bit further here. Wisconsin Beef Council's board opted to invest into this program as well. So we were exposing more Wisconsin consumers to these ads, of which we had 1.8 million impressions, but we also had $4.7 million in those traceable beef sales. So the return on investment was $472 of beef sales for every one checkoff dollar invested into the program. So we've seen a lot of value and opportunity to increase sales of beef, increase consumer exposure to our messaging overall through these e-commerce campaigns. And now maybe a little bit less visual piece of how our checkoff dollars are invested, but long-term, a really important part of the Beef Checkoff program is investing into research. There's a number of different arenas that nationally checkoff dollars are invested into on that research platform. And I'm just going to talk briefly here about nutrition research. So for decades, the Beef Checkoff program has been funding research studies from how beef can fit into a heart healthy diet to the important nutritional benefits of beef to all ages throughout the lifespan, really. We have research on infants and toddlers and how we can incorporate beef into their diets as early as 6 months of age. And the overall developmental benefits that our youngest generation sees from consuming beef in terms of cognitive and, of course, overall muscle development, all the way through to our older generation and the value of consuming protein to maintain muscle viability as we get into our older years. Something that we are fans of and we're really are taking great pride in is the new dietary guidelines that were introduced earlier this year, where beef is playing a more prominent role in that decision-making process for consumption through our federal feeding programs. But really key to beef being able to take a more prominent role in the new pyramid is that these research studies that we have compiled over the last several decades, several of them were cited by the Dietary Guidelines Committee. So we really were appreciative that they were able to use this research informing the new guidelines and ensuring that consumers understand the important place that beef plays on the plate. Now, we don't just, of course, wait for dietary guidelines to come around every 5 years to be able to share the great information that we get from the nutrition research program through the Beef Checkoff. We have, going back again to that state and national partnership, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association has led the deployment of that nutrition research. And so when they get those studies back from our universities across the US, they're taking that and developing it into toolkits that can be used not only by our consumers, but by our health professionals across the US as well. On the screen is an example of our latest protein kit that was developed. And it's really showing a snapshot of total calories consumed to get 25 grams of protein and stacking that like lean beef, a 3-ounce serving of lean beef, and how much of some of the other protein sources you would need to consume in order to achieve that 25 grams of protein, as well as the calorie intake that you might experience from consuming those other food items as well. So what we have done with these kits is to mail them directly to medical offices across the US. And again, the Wisconsin Beef Council Board has opted to increase exposure to additional Wisconsin medical offices. So we've had 130 kits mailed out to medical offices across the state of Wisconsin, and then 5,000 of those total kits across the US so far. Again, they're just highlighting beef's role as a foundational food for health. And once those physicians and other health professionals receive those kits, we do ask for a little bit of feedback in terms of the value that they're seeing from this information. And 90% of those who respond to those surveys after receiving the kit say they will recommend beef more frequently to their patients as a result of this resource. Additional kits that we have available are focused on heart health, that infant toddler age for parents, as I mentioned earlier, as well as adolescents. We just wrapped up in April attending 4 different health professional conferences here in Wisconsin. We were at the Dietitians the nurses, family physicians, as well as the cardiovascular and pulmonary health and rehab conference as well. So we really had some great conversations here this spring on all of those different topics and being able to share that scientific research with those folks. So just a couple of wrap-up pieces here as we come to kind of the end of what I've got for my formal presentation. We, of course, know that beef demand has been incredibly strong over the last several years, and our consumers are continuing to show resilience and desire to be consuming our delicious beef product, even in light of increased costs to them and their families. So if you look at the total fresh meat sales across the US, comparing 2025 year-end data to 2024, there was a 9.1% increase in overall dollar sales of fresh meat. And in terms of total pounds of fresh meat, there was a 3% increase year over year. But when we start looking at beef on the national scope here, for year ended December 31st of 25, total dollar investments and purchases of our beef products saw an increase of 12%, 2025 versus 24, and total pounds of beef saw an increase of 4% overall. So again, showing that desire for the high quality beef that is being produced today here within the United States. And I might just add in here, for those of you not seeing the screen, in talking about those total pounds of products sold, chicken saw a 3% increase in pounds sold. Again, beef was a 4% increase. Pork was seeing a 1.1% increase in total pounds sold. And our meat alternatives saw a decline of almost 9% overall as compared to the previous year. And then we, of course, as a checkoff program, it is mandated by U.S. Department of Agriculture that we conduct a return on investment study every year. So our most recent ROI study was done, or the evaluation was completed by Dr. Harry Kaiser of Cornell University of the time period from 2019 through 2023. And kind of the highlights of that was that over that past 5 years, for every dollar spent of the checkoff, we have seen a $13.41 return, total financial impact back to producers who have invested into the program. And with that, our efforts to drive demand for beef, without that, steer prices would have been about 8% lower. And then the last piece that was found is that beef demand would have been 2.4 billion pounds lower per year over that 5-year time frame without the investment of the Beef Checkoff program. And with that, I am just going to conclude by encouraging you all, if you are interested in learning more about how your Beef Checkoff investment is going to grow demand for our product overall, you can come to Wisconsin Beef Council's website at beeftips.com. Go to the Cattleman's Corner, and there you will find an opportunity to sign up to receive our monthly e-newsletter. At the same time, you'll be signed up to receive the drive, which comes from the Cattleman's Beef Board. You can either get that as a monthly email, or you can get a newsletter delivered to your mailbox once a quarter. And that will just be sharing again the overall programs that the Beef Checkoff is invested into on the state and national level. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Tammy. And I do have a couple questions for you. Let me check the first one here. Most of us here in Wisconsin and outside Wisconsin borders recognize that we have dairy milk checkoff. And I'm wondering if you can, through Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, I'm wondering if you can distill down for us or give us a really high level of the difference between the checkoff programs uh, that we know of with the milk checkoff and with the beef checkoff. Or maybe I should ask it like this. Why don't we market Wisconsin beef the same way we market Wisconsin cheese?
Absolutely. So that is a great question. And the so our the checkoff program, let me start over. The beef checkoff program that Wisconsin Beef Council is operating under is the federal program. It is through the U.S. Department of Agriculture that program is administered. And within the act and order that we follow, we are mandated to do generic beef marketing. So we cannot be specific to the state of Wisconsin. We could, so we have a number of our state counterpart beef councils that, in addition to the dollar per head federal checkoff program, they have state checkoff programs as well. So at the state level, when you have that marketing order written, you could perhaps write into that it would allow us to specifically brand or market Wisconsin raised beef. And I think that's kind of the maybe the difference here that we are addressing between Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin and the Wisconsin Beef Council is that we do not have a state marketing order for the beef checkoff program within Wisconsin, whereas dairy does have both the federal and the state marketing orders in place.
Got it. Uh, and that kind of brings to mind another question I've had, maybe that ties into this. Just curious if there are parallel organizations across the country to Wisconsin Beef Council doing for their states what Wisconsin Beef Council is doing for Wisconsin.
Yep, absolutely. There certainly are. So we have a total of 43 state beef councils across the United States, and we really have a great alignment with a lot of those states. We have a meeting once a year where we get together with those various organizations and really have the chance to kind of compare notes, learn from one another to see if there's a program, say in Iowa, that the Iowa Beef Industry Council is implementing that might be something that we could do here within Wisconsin as well. And I have to admit that Iowa was the original creator of a state best burger contest. And so we took the guidelines that they had put into place within Iowa and brought that contest here to Wisconsin. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to align, learn from one another, and as well as, chances to partner. We've got a number of state beef councils. Let's just use Nebraska as an example, where they have a lot of cattle, but not a lot of consumers. And so Nebraska's Beef Council board has really opted to support a number of programs in some of those higher populated states, say on the West or the East Coast, so that the dollars are reaching truly where our consumers are.
That's so interesting. I guess I wouldn't have thought about population centers, but that really makes a lot of sense. And since you mentioned the burger contest, Before you and I even connected today, I was going to ask you about the burger contest. My husband and I are big fans. Um, I'm all in favor for not only conducting a burger contest, but how about let's work with some of our supper clubs in Wisconsin and see who's got the best prime rib, filet mignon, ribeye. Can we do that?
That is
Maybe there's
certainly
something
something.
already in the works.
We have had an initial conversation with our board about that opportunity. What we have done, say with prime rib, of course, because we know that Friday nights in Wisconsin are known as old fashions and prime rib night, right? Across our entire state. So we did have a chance this past year to partner with the Gather Wisconsin program, which is the kind of the consumer brand through Wisconsin Farm Bureau. And we created a prime rib trail. So again, consumers could nominate their favorite prime rib restaurant across the state. And then we published together with Gather this prime rib trail. So, as an opportunity to kind of follow that map, if you're traveling to the North Woods this summer and you're looking for a place to go, we've got recommendations there. Or there were even some places that some folks in regional areas had never heard of before that got nominated. So we're excited to continue that prime rib trail in the years to come, as well as exploring some of those other suggestions that you had as well, Shelley.
That makes me very happy. Not gonna lie, I forwarded the best burger list to a couple of friends of my husband and I. They also got the prime rib trail list from me. So we've already started adventuring. Uh, I do have a question for you that's maybe a little more serious. Uh, tell us a little bit about why checkoff, the beef checkoff is paid on cattle transactions as opposed to at the point of slaughter. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that really is a great question. So if we can go back in time here again, back into the in the 80s, beef demand was really declining due to dietary concerns and the perception that beef was unhealthy. So the leaders of our industry who felt that it was really important to have a generic marketing platform as well as being able to invest into that research area overall to show how beef can fit into a healthy part of or how beef can fit into a healthy lifestyle. Those leaders felt it was really important that everyone throughout the life cycle of an animal should pay into the checkoff, whether that be beef cattle or dairy cattle, of course. And a couple of, I guess, in speaking, of course, specifically to our dairy farmers here today, traditionally about 16% of the US of the national checkoff investment comes from our dairy cattle. But truly, the importance of that investment does add value throughout the entire chain. And so some examples of that would be, if we didn't have the beef checkoff program and the support of our dairy farmers behind it, to really elevate what we're able to invest into. If we didn't have our nutrition research and a dietitian was making a recommendation for a protein source and didn't have our beef research, um, that could have an overall impact and potentially what they might be recommending. Maybe they would have chicken as their primary source and not even mention beef at all. And of course, as a beef council and nationally as well, we are sharing stories of both our beef and dairy farmers with our consumers so that they can understand how our cattle are raised and cared for within our state, as well as being able to just share how trends are changing across each of those sectors. And in one last thing I guess I would mention is that that research not only is important to the nutritional value of us as human consumers of beef, um, but it also focuses on product quality, beef product quality overall. So, of course, a number of our dairy farmers today are using the beef on dairy crossbreeding. And as we saw that trend start to increase nationally, there was some beef quality research that was implemented to just really better understand the value opportunity of those dairy beef cross carcasses throughout the beef supply chain, and working to ensure that there were consistent eating characteristics across those different carcasses that were coming through the marketplace as well. So we are grateful for your investment. We're also grateful for the leadership that dairy farmers bring to our state boards as well as nationally through the Cattlemen's Beef Board in ensuring that dairy's voice is heard and that we are being partners across all of our investors.
I think that's a good segue into my next question for you, Tammy, because there is quite a bit of crossover between the dairy and the beef industries. So my question, if you were to tell a dairy producer one or two things about the beef checkoff and the value of it, what would you tell that dairy producer?
You bet. Well, I mean, again, I just want to go back to the fact that we appreciate your investment and your confidence in the program that we are implementing on your behalf. Again, about a quarter of the checkoff that is coming in nationally is representative of the dairy industry. And going back to, we've got nearly half of our Wisconsin Beef Council board who are dairy farmers themselves. And once they have had the chance to do a deep dive into the programs that we are offering on both the state and national level, and having a truly more in-depth understanding of how our programs align, our dairy farmers walk away as huge supporters of the beef checkoff. So again, I just encourage everyone who has questions to seek out a fellow dairy farmer who has been on our beef council board, to reach out to our office, to reach out to those three national leaders that we talked about earlier today, Terry Quam, Aaron Crooks, and Steve Springer, to really get the broad perspective of the importance of your voice and the importance of us having a cohesive partnership across our beef and dairy industries.
Excellent. Tammy, am I correct in thinking that if I wanted to find that list of best burgers and the prime rib trail, I could go to Wisconsin Beef Council's Facebook page?
You absolutely could. Yes, search for Wisconsin Beef Council on Facebook. You could find both of those lists there. I can't tell you how many people have told us that they print that list off and they keep it in the glove box of the car, so that when it comes dinner time or lunchtime and you're driving across the state in an unfamiliar area, that you've got that as a reliable go-to source for a delicious beef meal.
Excellent. Well, far be it from me to diminish the work of the Wisconsin Beef Council to a list a great place to get tasty food, but what brings us together more than tasty food and beef on top of it? So thank you for the work you do on behalf of all dairy producers and the entire industry. We are thankful to have partners in you, Tammy, and the rest of you at the Wisconsin Beef Council. And I will say to those who are listening today, if you're one of those who would like to get some continuing education units, remember there'll be a short little quiz that you can take as soon as this episode is closing. Submit your questions and we'll make sure you get the continuing education credits you have coming your way. And join us on Thursday and we'll have more for you from PDP's The Dairy Signal. Goodbye.